Hello. Leases and service charges, they're not the most exciting thing in the world to talk about. I suspect this video is not going to get quite as many views as the baby shark video or a cat playing the piano. Nevertheless, they are quite important, and I suspect the reason you've stumbled across this video is because you've realised for one reason or another that a lease and a service charge is important. So over the next few series of videos, I'll be going through details about what a lease is, what the service charge is, to give you a bit of guidance as to what you can expect from the fascinating world of leases and service charges. So let's start off in this video with the most basic question of all. What is a lease? Simply put, your lease, should you have one, is the Bible as far as your property is concerned. It tells you what you can and cannot do. It defines your relationship between you and your landlord. Now you might be thinking, landlords, they're a thing that you deal with when it comes to rent. But the fact of the matter is that if you have a lease property, whether that's you own a flat, or you are a shared owner in a flat or a house, you will have a landlord, a freeholder, or a lessor, as the legal speak calls it. You may have a mortgage, you may have paid that mortgage off, you may have bought the property up front, or you may have inherited it, but you don't, strictly speaking, own it, not in the same way that someone who owns a house owns their house. Instead, with a lease, basically you own the right to live in that flat, most likely it's a flat, for a very long period of time. It might be 99 years, 125 years, 250 years. The length of time for which you can live in it will be defined in, surprise, surprise, your lease. Basically, with a leasehold property, what you've done in terms of payment is pay upfront for many, many, many years' worth of rent. This is why a lot of legislation refers to leaseholders as tenants. It might even be why your landlord refers to you as a tenant, whether your landlord is a housing association or a private landlord, or a managing agent acting on behalf of a private landlord. Ultimately, leaseholders are tenants, and that's why sometimes you will be referred to as a tenant. Quite often leaseholders don't like to be referred to as such, and most landlords are coming to terms with that and getting to grips with the idea. But there is that relationship between a landlord and a tenant. So why am I telling you this? Because ultimately a lease has a great deal of influence on what you can and cannot do with your home. If you were a house owner, if you owned your house, you'd be the freeholder and you could pretty much do whatever you liked with it. You might need to get planning permission if you want to build an extension or do anything massively different to the house, but generally your house would be yours to do with as you pleased. It's a bit different with a leasehold property, usually a flat, because it's the landlord who owns the building, and so it's the landlord who can decide what you can and cannot do with your part of that building. But they have to be reasonable about it. Reasonableness is a key component of leases and the interpretation of leases, as we'll find out over the next few videos. So a lease can define certain things about what you can do, what you can't do in your property. They can, for example, say whether or not you can keep a ferocious beast in your flat. They can tell you whether or not you can host a circus in the grounds of your property, and they can tell you whether or not you're allowed to play a gramophone particularly loudly. These are, believe it or not, all examples of leases I have seen in the past. More seriously, a lease will define things like how often you need to paint the inside of your flat. It will also define requirements about giving your neighbours quiet enjoyment of their home, and it will define what parts of the building you are responsible for repairing and what parts of the building your landlord is responsible for repairing. Most importantly, and this is where my particular area of expertise lies, a lease will define what service charges you need to pay and how to pay them. There'll be a lot more about service charges in forthcoming videos, much more. But suffice to say, for the time being, a service charge is a bill that you pay to cover the costs, the landlord's costs of providing certain services and repairs to your building. So examples of this are cleaning, communal light and power, grounds maintenance, various repairs around the building, whether that's inside or outside or on the estate, lift repairs and maintenance, work and maintenance done to water pumps and things like that. Anything that needs some care and attention around the building that the landlord is responsible for, they will do the work, or they will arrange for the work to be done, and you will be responsible for paying towards it. In future videos, I'll be going through more details about leases and service charges using specific examples from actual leases to illustrate my point. Make sure you don't miss any videos by hitting subscribe. If you've got any particular questions, any particular topics you'd like me to cover, put those questions in the comments section below and I'll have a look at them and see what I can do to answer them. In the meantime, goodbye for now.